They say silence is golden, but sometimes, my friends, silence turns into an earthquake. At first it feels like power, the calm after the storm, the proof that you can walk away without begging, without explaining, without fighting. You go silent because you've finally learned that attention is expensive and not everyone can afford yours. You thought this was peace, right? A way to make them feel your absence, to make them realize what they lost. But here's the truth. Silence is not just a wall. It's a mirror. It reflects everything. It shows you their real intentions, their hidden pride, their quiet confusion, and slowly it starts showing them too what life feels like without your presence. In the beginning they felt powerful. They thought they won because you stopped reaching out. They convinced themselves you were the one who cared more. But time has a funny way of turning tables. The same silence they thought made them free starts to haunt them. They scroll through old messages, replay old moments, and pretend they don't. They tell themselves they've moved on, but deep down, the silence is too loud to ignore. It's not your voice they hear anymore. It's the echo of their own choices. That's what silence does, folks. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It just waits. And in that waiting, it teaches. You might be sitting there thinking, did I mess up? Is my silence working against me? Let me tell you something. Silence never loses power. It only tests your patience. The universe works quietly too, doesn't it? It doesn't announce its storms or whisper its lessons in your ear. It just shifts things until truth becomes impossible to hide. That's what your silence is doing. It's rearranging the energy between you and them. It's stripping away illusion, exposing pride, and forcing them to face what they tried to ignore. You mattered. Think of silence like winter, my friends. Nothing seems to grow. Everything looks dead. But beneath the cold ground, roots are strengthening. You're not losing anything. You're rebuilding. They might not text you today, but they're feeling the cold. Every minute without your warmth reminds them that attention from others doesn't hit the same. Your silence is the season they never prepared for. Because when you stop feeding someone's ego, they starve for validation elsewhere. And no matter how much noise they surround themselves with, there's always a quiet space that still belongs to you. And don't let your mind trick you into believing silence means failure. That's the biggest lie people tell themselves when they miss someone. Maybe they don't care anymore. Oh, they care. They just don't want to show it. Pride makes people quiet too. But while you're mastering calm, they're losing control. While you're learning peace, they're wrestling with what-ifs. That's the balance of silence. One grows stronger, the other falls apart, trying to understand it. So breathe, my friend. Don't rush to break the silence just because it feels heavy. Let it work for you. Let time expose who values your energy and who only misses your attention. The one who truly loved your soul will start to hear your absence louder than your presence ever was. That's the moment everything flips. That's when they start realizing silence wasn't distance. It was transformation. You evolved while they hesitated. You stayed grounded while they drifted. That's your power. Calm, unshaken, untouchable. Now, before we go any further, I want you to stop scrolling and ground yourself for a second. Take a breath. Feel that quiet inside you. That's not emptiness. That's power collecting. I want you to type this in the comments right now with confidence. My silence speaks volumes. Not later. Not maybe. Do it now, because the moment you write it, you claim it. You shift the energy. You stop waiting to be understood, and you start standing in your worth. Say it out loud too. Let it echo through the room. Because your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's not about ignoring someone, it's about mastering yourself. That calm you're sitting in, that's how people who once underestimated you start losing sleep. You're not chasing anymore, you're choosing. You're not waiting, you're building. And the universe always rewards the ones who learn to stay still when everything inside them wants to run. So stay patient, my friends. Don't doubt what's working beneath the surface. The same ones who thought your silence meant indifference will soon realize it was the loudest message they ever received. When the noise around them fades, you'll still be the quiet they crave. You are not forgotten, you're unforgettable. Write it in the comments right now. My silence speaks volumes. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because the story's about to turn in your favor. Number 1. At first, they thought you'd break the silence. At first, my friends, they thought you'd break the silence. They were sure of it. They thought you'd come running back the way you always did, with your soft heart, your patience, your explanations, your need to make peace. They thought your quiet was temporary, a short break before the storm of your emotions pulled you right back into their orbit. That's how they've always seen you, predictable, forgiving, and loyal to a fault. In their mind, you were easy to read. But this time, something different happened. You didn't move. You didn't chase. You didn't try to fix what they broke. You chose silence, and that silence confused them more than any words ever could. At first they smirked. They told themselves, "Give it a few days. They'll text. They always do." That false sense of control gave them comfort. They felt powerful, almost smug, thinking they had the upper hand. But what they didn't realize, folks, is that silence is like a slow leak in their ego. It doesn't destroy them all at once. It seeps in quietly day by day until they're left gasping for the attention they once took for granted. You see, silence is psychological warfare. Not loud, not dramatic, but surgical. It strips away illusion and forces the other person to face themselves. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that's exactly what's happening to them. Your silence is making them see the truth they avoided, their pride, their fear, their dependence on your validation. At first, they were fine. They scrolled through their phone, half expecting your name to pop up with that familiar message, "Can we talk?" But the longer the silence stretched, the heavier it got. What used to feel like victory started to feel like a void. Every time they unlocked their phone, they felt that little drop of disappointment when your message wasn't there. It's funny, isn't it? The same silence they thought would hurt you began to eat them alive instead. Like staring into a mirror too long, it stops showing you your reflection and starts showing you your truth. They start asking themselves silent questions they can't answer. Did I really mean that much to them? Are they moving on? Have they stopped caring? Those questions are like invisible chains around their mind. Every hour without your attention tightens them a little more. That's what silence does. It doesn't just create space, it creates curiosity. And curiosity, my friends, is the seed of obsession. But I know what you're thinking. Why does it have to take so long? Why can't they realize my worth immediately? Because real realization doesn't happen overnight. It happens in stages. First comes denial. They convince themselves they don't care. Then comes distraction. They try to fill the silence with new people, new conversations, meaningless attention. But eventually, every distraction fades. The laughs stop feeling genuine. The messages feel empty. The silence between those moments starts to whisper your name again. And while they're fighting that internal storm, you're out here growing stronger. You're learning what it means to detach with dignity. You're not using silence as punishment. You're using it as protection. You've stopped trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't recognize it. That's the calm power of Stoicism. Not reacting doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you understand that not everything deserves your energy. It's hard, I know. Some nights you stare at your phone too, wondering if they're thinking about you. You replay old conversations, old memories, and that little voice asks, "Should I just say something?" But pause for a second. Why should the one who was genuine be the one to beg for clarity? Why should the one who gave love be the one to chase closure? No, my friend, silence is not weakness, it's self-respect. And though it may feel cold now, that calm will soon turn into confidence. Picture a storm hitting the ocean. The waves crash, the winds scream, chaos everywhere, but deep beneath the surface the water remains still. That's you now, still, grounded, untouched by surface noise. They only see the waves. They don't realize the real power is below. That's why your silence scares them, because silence means control, and control means they can't predict you anymore. Days turn into weeks, and slowly the game shifts. The same person who thought you'd break first starts checking your social media more often. They hover over your profile but don't interact. They re-watch your stories, scroll through your old pictures, and suddenly nostalgia hits them in waves. They wonder what you're doing, who you're talking to, whether you've moved on. Their pride keeps them from reaching out, but curiosity keeps them prisoner. Every notification that isn't from you feels like a sting. Every night they tell themselves they don't care, but the mind doesn't lie. It remembers the one who brought peace, not chaos. And that's the beauty of it, my friends. Silence doesn't demand recognition. It earns it. You've become the quiet they can't get out of their head. You've become the thought that lingers when the party's over, when their phone goes dark, when life gets still again. That's when they finally feel the loss. They thought your silence meant you gave up, but really it meant you grew up. You stopped performing for their attention. You stopped explaining your value. You became still, and in that stillness you became rare. So hold that silence like a crown, not a cage. Let it remind you that your calm is not emptiness. It's evidence that you're healing. You're no longer reacting from pain. You're responding with power. The right ones will feel your silence not as rejection, but as respect. They'll recognize that your absence was never about ego, it was about peace. And I want you to claim that peace right now. Go to the comments and write, "My silence commands respect." Not as a phrase, as a declaration, because you're not the same person who used to chase closure. You've become the calm after their chaos, and trust me, sooner or later, they'll come searching for that calm again. Number 2. The mind always chases the missing pattern. The mind, my friends, is a creature of habit. It craves rhythm, pattern, and predictability. When someone becomes a part of your daily thoughts, your routine, your messages, your laughter, they don't just exist in your life, they embed themselves into your nervous system. You were that pattern for them. Every time their phone buzzed, their brain fired a little shot of dopamine. Your voice, your presence, your responses, all of it became their emotional routine, and just like any habit, the mind starts to depend on it. But when that pattern suddenly disappears, when the rhythm stops, the brain panics. You see, silence doesn't just remove sound, it removes stimulation. And the human brain, according to every psychological study, hates that gap. It doesn't understand absence. It tries to fill the void with questions, with theories, with what-ifs. That's when curiosity begins to mutate into obsession. Carl Jung once said, "People don't see God because they don't look low enough." What he meant was that people avoid looking into the uncomfortable depths of their own mind, the dark corners that show them what they truly fear. And in this silence, that's exactly where they're being forced to look. At first, they think they're fine. They go about their day pretending nothing changed. They tell themselves they're over it. But then something small happens. A sound, a song, a memory. and suddenly their mind lights up, searching for the missing piece. That's how pattern recognition works. The brain doesn't just want to remember you, it wants to restore you. It tries to rebuild what's missing because you were once part of its comfort loop. You were the text they expected every morning, the voice that anchored their mood, the energy that balanced their chaos. When you went silent, that entire system collapsed. It's like pulling the battery from a clock. Everything looks the same, but nothing moves anymore. Their days feel slower, their energy feels scattered. They can't explain why their thoughts keep circling back to you. That's dopamine withdrawal, folks. They were addicted to your attention even if they didn't realize it. And when the supply stops, the craving begins. It's not love at first, it's confusion. But confusion always turns into curiosity. And curiosity, when left unanswered, becomes obsession. They start looking for signs. Maybe you viewed their story. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you posted something that wasn't about them. But they'll find a way to believe it is. That's how the brain works under deprivation. It creates patterns where none exist, just to calm the discomfort. They start thinking, did they move on already? Are they with someone new? Are they thinking about me at all? Those thoughts loop endlessly, and the silence between them grows heavier each day. The same silence that you sit in calmly is now their private battlefield. You see, the real power of no contact isn't punishment, it's exposure. It exposes who was emotionally dependent, who was truly in control, and who can sit with discomfort without running from it. Your silence made them face their own restlessness. And now, the person who once fed off your energy is searching for it everywhere. They try distractions, new people, louder lives, but the brain keeps chasing the original pattern. Because it doesn't want any attention, it wants yours. The irony is, the more they try to forget you, the deeper they dig themselves in. Every attempt to suppress a thought only strengthens it. It's called the rebound effect in psychology. When the mind tries not to think about something, it ends up thinking about it even more. You've become their unfinished sentence, their unresolved melody. And the longer they go without closure, the more powerful your absence becomes. That's why I tell you, don't break the silence just because you feel the distance. Let their brain do the work this time. Let them sit in the discomfort you once carried. Let them wonder. Let them replay. Let them crave. That's not cruelty. That's balance. You're not giving them a taste of their own medicine. You're allowing the truth to surface naturally. The truth that you were never just a phase. You were a rhythm. And rhythms, when broken, are always missed. So breathe easy. You don't have to do anything to make them remember you. Their mind is already doing that on its own. Stay calm, stay composed, and let the silence remind them who they lost. Because every second they spend wondering is a second that proves your energy mattered more than their ego ever did. Write this in the comments right now. I am the pattern they'll never replace. Don't just type it, mean it. You were not ordinary, you were irreplaceable. And sooner or later, they'll realize it too. Number 3. They start replaying every word you said. It always starts with one small memory, my friends. Maybe it's something you said months ago, a line they brushed off, a moment they laughed at, a truth they didn't take seriously. At first, it flashes through their mind for a second and disappears, but the silence keeps bringing it back. Because silence gives memory a stage, and without new words to drown it out, their thoughts start replaying the old ones. Every sentence you spoke now has weight. Every goodbye sounds different. Every pause feels loaded. They begin to rewind the tape again and again, searching for what they missed, trying to decode the meaning behind what you once said so clearly. That's what silence does. It turns memory into a mirror. In the beginning, they thought they understood you. They thought they had you figured out. They believed they could walk away, that you'd just be another chapter, another story. But now, with no new input, the mind begins to recycle the past. It starts asking questions it never cared to ask before. What did they really mean when they said that? Why did they go quiet after that conversation? Were they hurt? Were they warning me? Those thoughts come creeping in late at night, when the world slows down and there's no one left to distract them. That's when they start realizing, you weren't the one who was complicated. You were the one who was honest. You see, when the noise disappears, the truth becomes louder. The same words they once ignored now echo with new meaning. They remember how calm you sounded when you said, "I just want peace." They remember the tone in your voice when you said, "I'm tired of trying." And back then, they didn't listen. They thought it was just talk. But now, silence makes every word feel prophetic. They start feeling the emotion they didn't feel before. They start regretting how lightly they took your sincerity. Because memory doesn't just play what was said, it plays how it felt. And feelings are much harder to escape than words. Psychologists say that when someone goes silent after emotional conflict, the mind automatically replays unresolved conversations as a way of seeking closure. But closure isn't logic, it's emotion. They can analyze your words all they want, but what haunts them is the energy behind them. That calm tone you had when you said goodbye, it wasn't coldness, it was control. That distance in your last message, it wasn't indifference, it was clarity. You stopped fighting because you finally saw the truth. They never listened. And now that silence forces them to. They'll replay the little things too, the way you laughed at their jokes, the way your messages always carried warmth, even when they didn't deserve it, the way you always saw the good in them when they couldn't see it in themselves. And that's when the guilt starts mixing with longing. They start realizing you weren't trying to win them, you were trying to understand them. You weren't chasing, you were connecting. And now that connection feels sacred because it's gone. But here's the irony. The same silence they thought would erase you is the silence that amplifies you. Every word, every gesture, every goodbye gets replayed until it becomes a lesson. They're finally seeing the version of you that existed all along, the version that was patient, loyal, and wise, the version they didn't appreciate because they were too busy seeking chaos. You've become the story they can't rewrite, the voice they can't unhear, the calm that now feels like a loss too big to name. And while they sit there dissecting the past, you've moved into the present. You're not replaying, you're rewriting. You're not holding on, you're healing. That's the beauty of Stoic calm. It doesn't beg for understanding, it allows time to reveal it. Their reflection is your proof. Their confusion is your confirmation. They are finally doing the emotional labor you once did for both of you. So let them replay, let them wonder, let them search for hidden meaning in your silence. Because the truth is simple, you didn't leave them guessing. They left themselves blind. And now the silence has opened their eyes. Write this in the comments right now with conviction. They'll remember my words forever. Because they will. Your honesty was rare, your calm was real, and your silence was the wake-up call they never expected. Number 4. Silence doesn't mean you lost. It means they're losing sleep. Silence doesn't mean you lost, my friends. It means they're losing sleep. You see, silence is often misunderstood. People think it's emptiness, but in reality, it's presence in its strongest form. It's the sound of your energy echoing through their conscience. They thought your quiet meant you moved on, that you stopped caring, that you gave up. But what they don't realize is that silence is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. You've learned to stand still while their thoughts spin out of control. That's real strength. That's what gets under their skin. They might pretend they're fine. They might post, laugh, and act like nothing bothers them, but psychology says otherwise. Studies show that unresolved emotional bonds stay active in the brain far longer than completed ones. That means when there's no closure, the mind keeps replaying the person, the feeling, the story, over and over. You became an unfinished chapter in their book, and that's why they can't stop flipping back to your page. They don't miss you because you begged for attention. They miss you because you took your energy back. The moment you stopped explaining yourself, their mind started explaining you to themselves, again and again, all night long. At first, they thought silence was indifference. They mistook your peace for weakness. But slowly, that silence began to haunt them. Every night when the distractions fade and the noise dies down, that's when they start hearing it. That quiet emptiness where your energy used to be. It's not guilt that keeps them awake, it's realization. The realization that you were the calm that kept their chaos from consuming them. That's what happens when a genuine soul leaves. The peace goes with it. And no matter who they try to replace you with, they can't recreate the balance you brought. It's funny how silence flips the script. You were the one once overthinking, wondering if they cared, questioning your worth. But now, you're the one sleeping peacefully while they toss and turn. You're the one healing while they're replaying. You see, silence doesn't erase you. It engraves you. People forget loud moments faster than they forget quiet ones. Because noise fades, but silence lingers. It's like perfume on old clothes, faint but unmistakable. They can go months without seeing you, but one thought, one smell, one memory, and suddenly you're right there in their mind again. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Your silence forced them into that confrontation. You became the mirror they avoided. They tried to control the story, to make you the one who cared more, but silence turned the table. It exposed who really depended on whose energy. And the truth is, they didn't just lose you. They lost the version of themselves that existed when you were in their life. The one who felt admired, important, wanted. Without your attention, they're back to facing their own reflection, and that reflection doesn't look so confident anymore. So no, silence doesn't mean you lost. It means you graduated. You stopped explaining your worth to people who only understood chaos. You stopped bleeding for validation. You became your own peace. And peace, my friends, is not quiet. It's power under control. They're not sleeping soundly because they can feel that energy shift. They can sense that the same person they once took for granted now walks in peace they can't disturb. That's what haunts them, the fact that your silence says what words never could. I no longer need you to understand me. So hold your ground. Don't let your emotions trick you into breaking the silence for temporary comfort. The ones who can't sleep will eventually reach for what helps them rest, and that's the peace they once found in you. Let them chase that. Let them feel the ache. Let them remember that you're the calm they lost when they chose chaos. Write this down in the comments right now. My peace keeps them awake, because it does. Your silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of self-respect. Number 5. Too much silence creates fear of replacement. Here's where things start to sting, my friends. Silence was just uncomfortable before, now it's terrifying. At first, they convinced themselves that you'd come back eventually. They thought you were just trying to make a point, that you were still sitting in the same emotional space waiting for them to notice. But when the silence keeps stretching and you don't reach out, something darker begins to creep in. That calm they mistook for weakness starts feeling like distance, and distance in their mind starts to look like replacement. You see, human beings are wired for ego protection. As long as they believed you were still waiting, their pride could breathe. But the longer you stay silent, the more their confidence begins to crack. That's when the questions start haunting them. Who has their attention now? Are they laughing with someone else? Have they moved on? Those thoughts don't come softly. They hit like waves at 2 a.m. when the room is dark and the phone screen is too bright. They open your profile, pretending it's nothing. They look for clues, a quote, a story, a smile, anything that could prove their worst fear true. Because the mind can handle loss, but it can't handle replacement. That's the cruel beauty of silence. It doesn't argue, it doesn't defend. It lets their imagination do the damage for you. Every day you don't respond becomes a silent message. I've outgrown you. And deep down, they start believing it. Their ego, which once felt untouchable, begins to panic. They replay every mistake they made, every time they ignored you, every time they thought you'd never walk away. They realize too late that your silence is not a wall, it's evolution. You're not waiting, you're transforming. Psychologists call it object permanence anxiety. When something, or someone, disappears from sight, the brain struggles to accept that it still exists. For them, your silence triggers that same panic. Because they can't see you, they start imagining someone else standing where they used to. And imagination, folks, is more powerful than reality. It paints pictures their pride can't handle. Maybe they imagine you smiling at someone new. Maybe they picture someone else hearing your laugh, your voice, your calm. Those thoughts burn them from the inside, because now silence feels like punishment. And here's what's ironic. You don't have to do a single thing to make them feel this way. You don't have to post. You don't have to flex. You don't even have to hint. The absence of noise is louder than any announcement. Because silence makes space for fear, and fear makes space for regret. They used to believe they were the center of your world, and now they can't even find proof that they still exist in yours. That's when the panic starts to grow teeth. They check your messages but find nothing new. They scroll your page but can't read your mind. They start to wonder, what if I'm the one who got replaced? That's when silence turns into consequence. Not revenge, consequence. Because you were never trying to hurt them. You were just healing yourself. But healing changes the dynamic. The one who once begged for attention now becomes the one others beg to hear from. That's how power shifts, quietly, invisibly, and completely. You see, folks, silence doesn't replace people. It reveals their replaceability. The hardest part for them is realizing that they no longer know what's going on in your world. You used to be transparent, open, easy to read, but now you've become mysterious, and mystery is magnetic. They can't stop thinking about what they can't control. That's the psychological loop that drives obsession. Uncertainty creates attraction, and now they're caught in it. Every unanswered thought becomes a story. Every imagined scenario makes you harder to forget. So don't break the silence. Don't hand them peace they haven't earned yet. Let them wrestle with that uncertainty. Let them feel the fear of being replaced, because that fear is what reveals the truth. They didn't just miss you, they needed you. And now they're realizing they might have lost someone who can't be replaced at all. Write this in the comments right now. I am the one they can't replace. Feel it in your chest as you type it. Because you are. You're not their echo anymore. You're their silence, their consequence, and their memory that refuses to fade. Number 6. Their ego starts to starve. This is where it starts to really sink in, my friends. The moment silence stops being just quiet and turns into a mirror they can't stand to look into. Their ego, once loud and untouchable, starts to starve. It's a slow process, almost invisible at first. You don't see ego collapse overnight. It crumbles one thought at a time. They still walk around acting confident, posting, pretending, laughing. But inside, the silence has started eating away at their sense of importance. Because your attention, that gentle, constant energy you once gave freely, was their food. It fed their confidence, their illusion of control, their belief that no matter what they did, you'd always be there. And now that it's gone, they're starving for it. You see, ego thrives on validation. It doesn't care about love, connection, or peace. It only cares about being seen, being admired, being in control. And when you go silent, you take away its oxygen. They thought silence would make you weak, but instead it made them hollow. It's strange how the human mind works, isn't it? The same silence they used to punish you now starts punishing them. They check their phone, they scroll through old photos, they look at old conversations, but it's not nostalgia they're chasing. It's ego reassurance. They're searching for proof that they still matter to you, and the more they can't find it, the smaller they start to feel. At first, they told themselves you'd be back. They laughed about it, maybe even bragged to their friends. They always come back. That's what their ego whispered to keep them calm. But every day that passes without your message is a tiny crack in that lie. Soon, confidence turns to confusion, confusion turns to insecurity, and insecurity turns to paranoia. They start asking themselves, wait, what if they're really over me? What if I wasn't as special as I thought? What if someone else is giving them the attention I lost? Those thoughts start looping, and every loop drains a little more pride from their chest. Carl Jung said that people don't really fall in love with others. They fall in love with the reflection of themselves that they see through the other person. That's what your attention gave them, a flattering reflection. When you disappeared, that reflection vanished. Now they're forced to face their real self, and it doesn't feel as powerful, as wanted, or as admired as before. That's why silence hurts the ego more than rejection ever could. Rejection ends a story. Silence leaves it unfinished. The ego doesn't know how to process the unknown. It starts spinning stories, trying to rebuild its importance. But deep down it knows the silence means the spotlight is gone. And this is where the tables truly turn. The same person who once thought they were too good for your attention now starts craving it. They might try to trigger you, post things meant to get a reaction, act like they've moved on. But every fake smile hides an empty stomach. Their pride can't digest the fact that they've lost influence over you. They used to feed off your reaction. Now your silence starves them of power. And that's when reality hits. They never had control. They only had access. The beauty of your silence, my friends, is that it doesn't seek revenge. It teaches balance. You're not trying to break their ego. You're just no longer feeding it. And in that space, the truth shows itself. They needed your validation more than you ever needed their attention. They're realizing too late that real power was never in who spoke louder. It was in who stayed calm longer. So don't feel guilty for their discomfort. Don't mistake their silence-breaking attempts as love. It's hunger. It's ego hunger disguised as emotion. Let them feel it. Let them experience what it's like to crave peace instead of control. Because that's how people grow. You're not the one losing here. You're the one who already found your balance while they're still fighting their own reflection. Write this in the comments right now. I no longer feed egos, because you don't. You're feeding your peace now, your strength, your clarity. You've stepped out of the game they thought they were winning. Number 7. When you stay silent, the universe starts speaking for you. Funny thing about silence, my friends, it doesn't just stay still. When you go quiet, the universe starts echoing for you. It's almost poetic how that works. You stop chasing, stop explaining, stop reminding them of your worth, and suddenly everything else starts doing it for you. They thought your silence meant you were gone. But what they didn't realize is that absence has a presence of its own. The energy you once gave so freely doesn't disappear. It spreads. It starts whispering through the world around them, through friends, through memories, through little coincidences that feel too sharp to ignore. At first, it's subtle. Maybe they hear a song that used to play when you were together. Maybe a friend mentions your name in passing. Maybe they scroll past something online that reminds them of your energy. They'll shrug it off, pretend it's random. But the universe doesn't do random. When someone carries guilt, regret, or unfinished emotion, silence becomes their haunting. The more they try to bury it, the louder it echoes. You become that invisible presence in the room that never really leaves. They try to laugh it away, distract themselves, fill the space with noise. But nothing fills it. That's because your energy isn't replaceable. It lingers, it vibrates, it calls out in ways logic can't explain. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that's what's happening to them now. The silence you left behind has become their mirror, forcing them to face what they avoided when you were around. Their own subconscious starts dragging your name into everything, because your energy was once the calm inside their chaos. You see, the human mind doesn't like incompleteness. It craves resolution. When something ends without closure, the psyche looks for signs, any signs, to make sense of it. That's why they start noticing coincidences. Your favorite song playing at random, someone wearing your perfume, an ad that pops up with your initials, all these little nudges that remind them of you. It's not magic, it's psychology. It's the universe aligning their awareness with what their soul refuses to forget. And here's the twist. The more they resist it, the stronger it gets. Because energy doesn't vanish, it transforms. You pulled your energy back, and now it's reflecting everywhere around them, showing them what life feels like without it. Their friends might bring you up unexpectedly. Someone might mention how peaceful you seem now. Maybe they even catch a glimpse of you through social media, calm, quiet, radiant. That image alone can pierce through their defenses, because you're not broken anymore, you're glowing differently. And glow is louder than words. Now every sign feels personal to them. Every coincidence feels like a message, and it is. Just not from you. It's from the universe reminding them of the imbalance they created. The silence they thought meant the end is now a constant reminder that the story didn't close properly. That's why they can't escape it. Because you've become the echo of their choices. This is where your peace becomes your power. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to speak, explain, or defend. The world around them will handle that part for you. You've become a frequency they can't tune out. And the beauty of it is, you didn't force it. You just allowed the truth to settle. When you stay still long enough, the energy starts speaking. People see your glow, hear your name, feel your calm, and the message spreads without your involvement. That's when they realize you were never the noise. You were the silence that meant something. So let the universe speak for you now. Let your absence become their teacher, because the truth always finds a voice, even through quiet. You don't have to chase closure when life itself delivers it for you. Write this in the comments right now. My silence speaks louder than my words. Feel that, because it does. You've become the lesson they can't unlearn, the sign they can't ignore, and the peace they'll spend years trying to find again. Number 8. They realize you were the calm after their chaos. In the end, my friends, there comes a quiet moment when it finally hits them. You weren't the chaos, you were the calm after it. All this time they thought your silence meant you stopped caring, that you were done, detached, or had simply moved on. But now, after nights of restlessness, after trying to fill the void with noise, they see it for what it truly was. Your silence wasn't absence, it was clarity. You didn't walk away to punish them. You stepped back to protect your peace. And the difference between those two things is something only time could teach them. They thought the distance would make them forget, but distance has a strange way of sharpening memory. When life slows down and distractions fade, the truth gets loud. They start remembering how you handled everything, your patience, your tone, the way you brought calm into every storm they created. They start realizing you were never asking for too much. You were offering something too rare. You were not pressure. You were peace. You weren't chaos. You were comfort. And that realization, folks, is a heavy one to carry when it comes too late. They thought they'd find better. They thought the next person would give them the same attention without demanding emotional honesty. But peace doesn't come in copies. What you brought wasn't excitement. It was stability. It wasn't noise. It was safety. And once someone gets used to that kind of presence, the absence of it feels unbearable. You became the calm after their chaos, the stillness that made their storms make sense. And once that calm is gone, everything else feels loud and hollow. It's almost poetic, isn't it? How the silence they once laughed at becomes the sound that wakes them at night. They start seeing you in everything. In the quiet mornings, in familiar places, in moments where they need someone steady to talk to. They start realizing it wasn't your messages they missed. It was your energy. It wasn't the conversation they craved. It was the feeling of being understood without having to explain. You were the peace they didn't know they were destroying until it was gone. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That's the truth they're living now. Every ounce of frustration they once projected on you was really a reflection of their own chaos. You weren't the problem. You were the pause. You were the quiet space their soul needed to grow, but their ego wasn't ready for it. Now, as the silence stretches, they're beginning to understand. It was never about winning or losing. It was about alignment, and they misread calm as indifference, mistaking peace for lack of passion. But silence was your way of saying, "I choose me this time." And the beauty of it all? By the time they realize what you truly were, they're already too late. They'll scroll through your photos, feel that familiar ache, and finally whisper to themselves, "I had peace, and I let it go." That's when it breaks them. That's when pride bends under the weight of truth. That's when they start longing, not for the excitement, but for the stillness, for the version of themselves that only existed when you were near. That's the full circle, my friends. They return not because you chased them, not because you reminded them, but because your silence echoed louder than their pride. You didn't prove your worth through words. You proved it through peace. You showed that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing and let time do the talking. And that, my friends, brings it all full circle. Silence was never your weakness. It was your transformation. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. Remember, those who truly value peace will always return to it, and your calm will forever echo louder than their pride. So keep standing tall in your quiet power. You've already won. If this message hit home for you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Stay grounded, stay patient, and remember, your silence speaks volumes.